What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of Insightful Principles. This is episode 33, and within this episode, this will be a continuation of the conversation of the stimulus package video that I released on Wednesday. And within this video, I want to go over the remaining components of the stimulus bill, such as the rental assistance that has been given to both renters and landlords, as well as the transportation industry and the funding that has been given to the airlines, the mass transit, and also within the school bus system. I'm also going to go into details of the funding that has been given to the child care sector, as well as the money that has been given to local small community banks that are in underserved and low-income communities. Now, before I get started, if you all can do me a huge favor, if you could please like, subscribe, and share this video, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, as far as the transportation industry, there's about $45 billion that is going to be given to this industry, and the airlines and the mass transit industries have been tremendously impacted by COVID-19. Travel has been down significantly, and a lot of the airlines have been burning through a lot of cash on a day-to-day basis. And it really shows that this aid is just the starting point, but they are going to need ongoing aid as the year prolongs along. Now, within the airline industry, there's about $15 billion that's going to be given in federal aid. Now, the intention of the funds is so that these airlines can be able to hire back a lot of those 32,000 furloughed workers that were let go last year in the fall. And I know, according to Yahoo Finance, they stated that the airline industry is down about 2/3 year to date, and it could potentially take more than a year for airline travel to get back to where it was before the pandemic. Now, Southwest Airlines, they haven't had to furlough any workers in 50 years since their inception, and they actually came out in a release in early of December of 2020 stating that they would have to lay off 7,000 workers if they weren't able to receive aid or being able to keep up with payroll. And also, United Airlines and American Airlines were a majority, were the companies that had to let go a majority of those 32,000 or furloughed 32,000 of those workers. So it definitely shows that, you know, the aid is going to present a lifeline for these airline companies. But a lot of CEOs have came out and stated that they feel that with the $15 billion given to the airline industry, it's only going to allow them to be able to take care of their payroll until March. So that's only less than 2 months away. So it's definitely a point of emphasis, I'm sure, with Congress of coming up with another stimulus for the airline industry to help them continue to pay their employees. Now, along with the airline aid, there's going to be about $1 billion that's going to be given to the airline contractors, as well as $2 billion for airports and the concierge. $14 billion is going to be given to the mass transit system, $10 billion for highways, $1 billion for Amtrak, and then $2 billion is going to be going to the private bus, school bus, and the ferry companies. Now, the American Public Transportation Association, and APTA, they had urged Congress before this bill came out that they were going to need $32 billion in federal aid. Now, even though the $14 billion that has been given to the mass transit system had fell short of that, the administration has created dialogue stating that they're going to come up with additional stimulus throughout the year. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. Now, the mass transit industry, they're having some of the same similar challenges that the airline industry is going through. The APTA, they conducted a survey stating that 47% of the public mass transit businesses are expected to lay off workers, and then 31% stated that they're in jeopardy of going out of business. So it definitely is a concern within their industry, and I think that, you know, most of this stimulus is going to begin negotiations for future stimulus that can help the mass transit system the mass transit industry to be able to stay afloat going throughout 2021. Now, the next aspect of the stimulus package was the rental assistance. They put a lot of attention to the housing industry, which they needed tremendously. I know that last year there were millions of Americans, unfortunately, that lost their homes, that faced eviction notices, and 25 billion was actually provided for emergency rental relief. And they also have extended the eviction ban until January 31st of 2021. Now, I definitely think that the eviction ban, there's going to have to be a conversation with that being extended much longer, because that's, less than 15 days from now. And I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that's still struggling, to be able to pay their mortgage. Now, the rental relief program is going to also help landlords that still need to pay their mortgages, because there are a lot of renters, they're not able to pay their landlords. So I know the landlords are facing that challenge as well, of being able to get money from their tenants. So this program is so that they can be able, as a landlord, keep a roof over their head as well. Now, 25 billion is actually going to be funded through the coronavirus relief fund, and it's also administered by the U.S. Department of Treasury. And once the states receive the funds, tenants will be able to apply for the aid, and then they'll be able to get the aid through their state and local relief organizations. Now, the expenses that the funds can be used towards is back rent, overdue utility payments, or any future bills that a renter is facing. Now, in order for renters to be eligible for this relief program, their household income has to be below 80% of the area's median income, which can vary from state to state. And also, someone in the household must have qualified for unemployment benefits, and they had to have lost part of their income or experienced a financial hardship due to COVID-19, or they can show that they're at risk of losing their home. Now, landlords and the utility companies, they're going to be paid directly from the state and local governments, and as long as the tenants sign off on the application. Now, if the landlords decided that they want to refuse the aid and not take it, then the renters can actually apply and receive the funds, and then they can pay their landlord. So I thought that was pretty unique as well. Part of the emergency rental relief program that came out. Now, the third aspect of this stimulus bill is the childcare sector. Now, the childcare sector, they're expected to receive $10 billion in emergency funding. Now, with many childcare programs are now starting to open back up from the stay-at-home orders that took place in spring of 2020, there is just a lot of daycare centers and preschool owners that have seen significant financial losses, both personally and professionally. Now, out of the 10 billion, there's actually going to be 250 million that's going to be provided for the Head Start program, which is a program that focuses on the physical, mental, and emotional development of children from birth to the ages of 5 years old. And this is just to ensure the children are school ready to be back into that school environment. Now, a majority of the funding will actually be going to the Child Care and Development Block Grant Program to help fund grants for child care providers. So I think that that's going to be very essential. And this can be used to stabilize their businesses for paying for payroll, purchasing sanitation supplies, and also covering fixed costs such as rent. Now, according to the National Association for the Education of Young Children, 56% of child care providers are losing money to stay open, and 42% have used their own personal credit cards to be able to pay for additional supplies and other expenses. So this definitely shows you that there's a lot of daycare centers out there struggling as well, preschool owners that are having to use their own line of credit to be able to buy the necessary expenses so they can be able to instruct the kids that come into their school effectively. So it definitely shows that this is a sector that needs attention as well. as well as all of the other industries that I have mentioned. Now, many of these centers are operating at a lower capacity as the costs continue to rise. And the child care industry, they play such a vital role in the development and the education of our next generation that I feel that there is going to be more funding that's given to them throughout 2021. And another great thing about the funding that recently was placed for this industry is that the Paycheck and Protection Program is also creating eligibility for child care programs. So I think that that's going to be great. It's going to help a lot of small business owners that have child care centers. And the last area that I want to go on today with the stimulus package is the assistance for small community banks and low-income community areas. Now, $12 billion is actually going to be provided for the community development financial institutions, the CDFIs, and the minority deposit institutions, the MDIs, to assist very small businesses that have been affected by our current economic crisis. Now, the funding provision has stated that there's going to be $9 billion that's going to be given in capital investments to the CDFIs and the MDIs to support underserved and low-income communities, including poverty counties that have disadvantages that have been affected by the impact of COVID-19. Also, $3 billion is going to be funded in grant support for the CDFIs in response to those communities that have been tremendously affected by this current pandemic. And there also is a provision regarding the Equal Credit Opportunity Act that will allow all, including depository CDFIs, to collect demographic data such as race, gender, ethnicity from borrowers and applicants for credit to make sure that underserved and low-income communities of investment areas are equally served. So they're definitely putting some progressive steps into being able to help those low-income communities in those areas that are underserved. And I really want to see exactly what the CDFIs are going to do in these next coming months. And this pretty much wraps it up for this video. I hope you all got some more perspective on just how this stimulus bill is broken down. It's so many different components. That's why I wanted to create a two-part series. If you haven't seen part one, I would definitely go and check it out. And part two, I really went in depth, with going into the remaining components such as the funding and the transportation, the child care, also the housing, and then in those bank support industries. And if you all can continue to like, subscribe, and share this page, that would be greatly appreciated. Leave a comment if you do feel interested in doing that. If you all can continue to support the Patreon page that I have, I will have it within my link tree within the show notes, so you can be able to look at that with the content that I'm creating for that platform, and just being able to connect with me in other ways. If you can follow the Instagram at Insightful Principles, that would be also greatly appreciated. And let's continue to keep this conversation of just financial wisdom, being financially literate, and making it an open dialogue where we can stay educating each other within our communities, specifically the Black communities. So I want to tell you all, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Insightful Principles, and take care.